Hi everyone, I'm Shai from the Contentful Developer Relations team. I'm here to share some knowledge that I've learned recently that I think is really cool. I've been using GraphiQL quite a bit to write my GraphQL queries. It's this really awesome cloud-hosted tool that you can use to write GraphQL queries. And one of the really nice things about it is that it's got documentation built into it. Let's take a look. We actually host an instance of GraphQL Contentful. All you need to use is take your normal GraphQL URL and just toss in the word explore. You do also need to have your access token in the URL parameter. You can't send it as a header in your web browser. You do have to type it out. And the full documentation on how to do that is at graphql.contentful.com. But one of the things I really like is that we've got this documentation explorer here. And I can click into this and I can see, hey, I've got a bunch of different things that I can request. I can request some assets. I can request some shows. I can request, whatever I want. And if I go and change my content model, let's say I delete a content type or I add a content type, that'll be reflected in here as soon as I refresh the page. And so one of the things I was curious about is how does GraphiQL actually know what the documentation should be? And I took a hint from my coworker, Steven Schneider, and I went ahead and I looked at the network inspector. Let's go ahead and reload the page. And we can see that we've got this post request right here. I dodged out of the way so you could see it was a post request. And if we go ahead and we take a look at it, we can go ahead and see what the request is. And we've got this thing called an introspection query. And this is a really interesting and long query. It's got the double underscores, which are a thing internally in GraphQL. They're kind of like reserved names. You're not allowed to use double underscore for schema, type, or type name as well. And yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at what this introspection query is. And luckily, they have a lot of documentation for GraphQL, and they also have source code. I found this get introspection query function. And what this does is this returns a query that they've pre-written for us. And this is a consistent query that you can get out of GraphQL. And I went ahead and I took this query and I copy pasted it into here. And we can see that this is actually identical to the query that I have in my request payload. They're the same thing, this introspection query. And what this does is it'll reach out, it'll make a GraphQL request and be like, hey, what's the schema of what we're using? Which is really good because we can use that to build the documentation. GraphQL itself is a strongly typed language, which means that we'll know what we should be using. And we can click into this, and let me close my request. And we can start to see things from our documentation in here. We can see that we've got the asset collection, which matches up. If we scroll down, we should see a test collection in a little bit, which we do. And what GraphiQL is using is it's using this schema, this introspection, to build out the documentation and give us a thing that we can use to figure out what we're doing. This information is really useful. You can take this into other strongly typed places. Maybe you could use this to generate your TypeScript definitions. You can take this and put it into tools like Postman. You can use the kind of auto documentation and autocomplete in external tools outside of GraphiQL. And I think this is just overall like a really interesting, kind of fascinating peek behind the curtains of how GraphiQL works, especially considering how often I use it in my day-to-day. If you want to learn more, head over to the GraphQL documentation. They have a whole bunch of tutorials on how introspection works and what each of the schema types and type names do and how this all works. You can build your own kind of introspection if you need something a little more custom. And if you're looking to learn about GraphQL, you can head over to the Contentful Developer Portal. We have a whole course where you can learn about GraphQL, React, and Contentful. Check it out, and do head over to our developer portal to check out all the stuff that we're doing on a regular basis. That's it from me. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye, everyone.